What does it mean when the world's most valuable company hires an engineer as a CEO to fix an AI problem? In this video, we are going to discuss how Apple's AI strategy might look under its new CEO John Ternus. We will talk about who he is, what went wrong with Apple's AI in the first place, what his plan actually looks like, and whether a hardware engineer can win a war that everyone else thinks is being fought in the cloud. Apple sits on a $4 trillion valuation, has 2.5 billion active devices, and is still losing the AI race. And their answer to that crisis is not a software genius or an AI visionary. It is a man who builds things you can hold in your hand. The question is whether that is exactly what this moment needs, or the biggest mistake Apple has ever made. Who is Ternus? On September 1st, 2026, John Ternus will officially become Apple's new CEO, and he is not an operations chief like Tim Cook. Ternus is a 50-year-old hardware engineer, the first to lead the company in over a generation. But here is the thing. Hardware is not foreign to Apple's DNA. It is Apple's DNA. Steve Wozniak, the man who literally built the first Apple computer with his own hands in a garage, is the original blueprint of what Apple has always been at its core. A company that believes the future is something you engineer, not just something you code. Jobs had the vision, but it was Woz who made it real. That spirit never left the company. It just got buried under years of supply chains and services revenue. Ternus is cut from that same cloth. He joined Apple in 2001, not as an executive, but as a product designer. He sat with his team on the floor. He refused a private office because he wanted to be where the work was happening. For the next 2 decades, he quietly rose through the company by doing one thing repeatedly, taking on transitions that everyone else thought were impossible and delivering them anyway. His defining moment came in 2020. Apple announced it was abandoning Intel, the processor that had powered every Mac for 15 years, and replacing it with its own custom silicon. The industry was skeptical. Developers were nervous. Analysts predicted years of painful transition. Ternus delivered the entire Mac lineup on Apple Silicon in under a year. Not just on time, ahead of schedule. That is not just an engineering achievement. It is a statement about how he thinks. He does not manage complexity. He eliminates it. Colleagues describe him as the kind of leader who, when you bring him a choice between A and B, does not form a committee. He picks one and moves. In a company that had spent years debating its AI direction while rivals raced ahead, that quality is not just useful. It is urgent. Because Apple's AI problem was never about resources. It was always about direction. And Ternus has never had a problem with direction. The problem he inherited. As an engineer, Ternus is walking into a software mess. The last few years have been brutal for Apple's AI ambitions. The debut of Apple Intelligence in late 2024 was seen by many as a historic disappointment, delivering modest writing tools instead of the truly intelligent Siri that had been promised. Apple even ran ads showing Siri doing things it could not actually do yet, and then quietly pulled those ads when the features were delayed by over 2 years. Apple's own Siri chief called the situation ugly and embarrassing in an internal all-hands meeting. The fallout was severe. AI chief John Ternus, who had been poached from Google in 2018, saw his responsibilities stripped before eventually departing the company. Roming Pang, the head of Apple's foundation models team, left for Meta after reportedly being offered a package worth over $200 million, an offer Apple chose not to match. The crisis culminated on January 12, 2026, when Apple confirmed a multi-year partnership with Google, paying roughly $1 billion per year to license Google's Gemini models to power the next generation of Siri. To the world, it looked like a surrender. Apple, the company that had built its entire identity around doing everything in-house, was now writing a billion-dollar check to a competitor for the most important technology of the decade. And that is exactly the mess Ternus is now stepping into, not as a software fixer, but as an engineer with a very different idea of where the real battle is being fought. Changing the battlefield. Here is what most people miss when they look at Apple's AI story. They are measuring Apple by the wrong ruler. The entire AI conversation has been dominated by one question. Who has the biggest, most powerful model? OpenAI, Google, Meta, Microsoft. They are all racing to build the largest brain in the cloud, spending hundreds of billions of dollars on data centers, servers, and electricity. And by that measure, yes, Apple is losing. But Ternus is not trying to win that race. He is trying to make it irrelevant. His bet is this: the future of AI is not something you connect to. It is something you carry. Think about what happens every time you ask ChatGPT a question. Your words travel to a data center somewhere, get processed on enormously expensive hardware, and the answer comes back to you over the internet. It costs money every single time. It requires a connection, and your data touches a server you do not control. Now think about what Apple is building instead: a chip inside your iPhone that runs AI models directly on your device. Your data never leaves. The response is instant. No server cost, no internet required. This is called on-device intelligence, and it is the foundation of everything Ternus is building toward. This is not a new idea at Apple. They built the first neural engine, a chip designed specifically for AI tasks, back in 2017, years before the generative AI explosion. Ternus did not invent this strategy. He is the person who gets to finally activate it at full scale. And the Google Gemini deal fits perfectly into this picture. For the small percentage of queries too complex for the device to handle alone, Apple passes them securely to the cloud. But Apple controls the entire experience. You ask Siri, not Google. The answer appears on your iPhone, not in a Google app. Google's model becomes just another component inside Apple's system, like a display panel from Samsung. Powerful, useful, and ultimately replaceable, as Apple builds its own 1 trillion parameter cloud model internally. The Gemini deal is not a surrender. It is a bridge that buys Apple time while keeping the most important thing intact: the relationship with the user. The financial numbers tell the same story. Apple's AI capital expenditure for fiscal 2026 is forecast at around $14 billion. Amazon is spending $200 billion, Google $175 billion, Meta $65 billion. Apple is not being cheap. Apple generated $416 billion in revenue last year. They could write any check they wanted. They are choosing not to, because their strategy does not require it. When your AI runs on chips your customers already bought, you do not need a data center arms race. You need better chips. And nobody in the world makes better chips than Apple. Now picture where all of this is going. A foldable iPhone arriving in late 2026. The first major new iPhone form factor in years. AI-native smart glasses designed to compete with Meta's Ray-Bans, which sold 7 million units in 2025. A tabletop home robot with a motorized arm. A smart home hub. A new generation of Apple Watch that can already detect hypertension, cleared by the FDA in 2025. Each of these is not just a product. Each one is a new node in a private AI network that only Apple controls, getting smarter with every interaction, entirely within an ecosystem where your data belongs to you. This is Apple's classic move. Let the industry exhaust itself, fighting an expensive, messy war. Then walk in with better hardware, a cleaner experience, and a privacy story no one else can credibly tell. It worked with music players. It worked with smartphones. It worked with wireless earbuds. The question Ternus is betting his career on is whether it will work with intelligence itself. But this strategy carries real risk, and it is worth being honest about that. By licensing Gemini, Apple risks becoming dependent on the very competitor it is trying to outmaneuver. If Google's models advance faster than Apple's own silicon can handle on device, Apple's hardware could end up being a beautiful frame around someone else's intelligence. Some analysts have already used that exact phrase: a beautifully engineered window onto Google's brain. That is not a place Apple has ever been comfortable, and it is not a place Ternus will want to stay. The Tim Cook era was defined by scaling an empire. 15 years, $4 trillion, 2.5 billion devices. It was one of the greatest runs in corporate history. The John Ternus era will be defined by something harder: proving that the company Steve Wozniak built in a garage, the company that has always believed in the power of the device in your hand, can still lead the world in the age of artificial intelligence. So here's the question for you. Do you think Apple's hardware-first strategy is the right answer for the AI era? Or is Ternus fighting the last war while the real battle moves somewhere else entirely? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching.